Everybody wants to be a person of influence, but very few people want to invest the time that's needed to be influenced. Everybody wants to be a coach, but very few people want to be a student of the process. Today, I'm going to talk about what people won't say out loud, and that is that coaching is not comfortable. I'm going to pull back the curtain on this idea of leadership coaching, not because I don't believe in it, because I do, but because too many people aspire to do that kind of work, but have never led anything at all. Or they simply refuse to be a student of the process themselves, which don't make them very effective. I've had this complicated relationship with this idea of leadership coaching, or the term, really, the term leadership coaching, for a long time, not because I think it's not valuable. I think it's crucial. Everybody's leading in some capacity or another, even if it's just leading themselves. But I've seen the term leadership coaching used and misused a whole lot of times, and used by people who have never done any kind of leadership work at all. And coaching people in any arena, in any area, doesn't just come from success. And a lot of people walk into this work thinking that they have to be successful at everything in order to do it, and that somehow they're disqualified because they have learned from failure. When in fact, some of the greatest leadership coaching, some of the greatest coaching is born from our failures. It's born from the experiences that you've lived where you've fallen, made mistakes, made huge blunders, and gotten up again, because they become resources that other people can learn from. And they become other experiences that people can learn from because you allowed yourself to be a student of the process, or else you wouldn't have bounced back. Certifications can't teach that. Going to schools to get degrees around being an effective leader won't train you to do that. However, experiences will. Very few people want to be a student of the process, but so many people want to coach. Everybody wants to start a coaching business, but nobody wants to be an individual who can sit at the feet of someone else who's better than they are to help them be greater than where they are and of who they are right now. An effective coach is always growing. They're always learning. They're always allowing themselves to be challenged. That person is a student and a coach at the same time. Coaches need coaches. Coaches need coaches. Leaders need leaders. Just like iron sharpens iron, as one person sharpens another as a result of their interaction with each other, an effective coach is effective because he is also, or she is also, being coached. If you want to lead others, but you're not being led yourself, your growth will be limited. You cannot pour into people from an empty, unsharpened space that you have not cultivated in your own life. Doesn't mean you have to have done the same thing that they've done or the same kind of work that they've done, but you've got to have some commonalities of experience that you can leverage to help you understand the lived context or challenges or hardships and wins that come with being effective in a particular role or position or environment. So being willing to be a student of the area where you spend the time and energy in coaching others is imperative. When you don't, you become stale, you become antiquated. Your ideas and perspectives will find themselves no longer of use to the people who could be benefiting from your expertise if you invested just as much energy in being a student of the process as someone who wanted to commit themselves to developing others. You're developing your competency and you're gaining trust from others when they know you're willing to be a student just as much as you're willing to be a coach. Some of the greatest developmental moments of my life have come from people who I have seen take on the role of follower. They taught me what it meant to follow. And as a result, I became a student of others around me whose work I admired. I observed how they engaged in their profession, how they engaged people, how they engaged in relationships. And those individuals were models for me in how to adjust my own practice. Leaders who were ahead of me, leaders who challenged me, leaders who showed me what effective involvement in communication and relationships look like, leaders who challenged my perspective and point of view, what my beliefs were about others, about what I was committing myself to. I remember very keenly having some senior leaders in my life challenge me about some of the relationships that I was cultivating in the workplace, the need to ensure that people felt seen, the need to ensure that people understood that they were valued by me. Even when from my own point of view, I found the need for people to really hone in on their jobs to be more important than that. They trained me and taught me that people won't understand or value any of the work to the degree that you want them to if they think you don't value them. And that was hard to hear. I had to be a student of the lessons learned by those individuals as they told me stories and instances when they operated in the same way and what it cost them as a result of their impact. And so I had to humble myself. Of course, initially you'll get defensive and want to be self-protective of your point of view. But if you want to grow as a leader who's going to impact other leaders, if you're going to be someone who will be an effective coach, then you will open your ears and eyes to those perspectives of seasoned and experienced leaders ahead of you who can give you the guidance you need to be more effective and make the impact you say you want to make. Recovering from failure is another great lesson I've learned from some of these leaders. As I learned to be an effective follower, observing, asking questions, leaning in to areas where I necessarily didn't feel were comfortable spaces for me, and asking questions about how they regained traction when things didn't go well for them, were experiences that became invaluable in developing who I wanted to be myself as a leader who had influence, positive influence in the lives of others. Failure, what did failure look like? How did you recover from it? How did you navigate that experience? All of those things are opportunities that were presented to me that I became a student of as I observed those seasoned leaders. People forget that before you can be an effective leader, you have to be an effective follower. And so, one of the keys to being a great leadership coach is also being someone who is willing to follow great leaders, follow people who have learned from their mistakes in their leadership and made the kinds of pivots needed to improve the quality of who they were, how they led, and what they did to support others as a result of their lessons learned. The coaching industry is saturated. It's overflowing with people who want to do this kind of work. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I've backed up from time to time from that term leadership coach, because I do feel it's often overused. And many people think coaching is about status, but coaching actually starts with yourself. It begins with values. It begins with your character. It begins with being willing to do the internal work long before you ever guide someone else in doing theirs. Coaching is developmental. It's transformational. It prunes both people involved. As a coach, you won't be the one just passing down great knowledge and wisdom. It is an exchange. It is a reciprocal relationship. Coaching is uncomfortable because growth is uncomfortable. When someone challenges your values, your behaviors, your assumptions, your blind spots, the way you show up in the world, it won't feel good, but it will make you better if you apply it. And so coaching isn't a feel-good service. It isn't, it's a developmental relationship. It's not a let me pay you so that you can tell me I'm right and then I can get the credit for taking action on what you told me or just affirmed for me that I thought was right in the first place. No, coaching helps me see what I can't see. Coaching helps you see what you can't see. And a lot of people think that coaching is a one sided experience where there's one expert and one listener, one giver of the knowledge and one receiver of it, when in fact it isn't true. Good coaching and a good coaching relationship is a reciprocal relationship where there's friction between both parties, the coach and the individual being coached. And it is in that friction, it's within that friction that creates the moments that you and the coach learn from one another. And it's that friction that often causes conflict between the coach and the person being coached, the person being developed in the process. Because neither one of you will see things eye to eye all the time. And that's not because there's not a mutual care for one another. There's not because you don't value the relationship, but there will be flat out times when you don't like the other person because you see there is a disconnect between who you are right now as the person being coached and where you want to be as a result of the feedback you're receiving from your coach. And from the coach, you'll see the disconnect between what it is you're communicating and possibly some of the experience gaps that the person that you're coaching may have that you don't have, that you have to close, those gaps that you have to close by asking questions and probing that individual to get a sense of what their lived experiences really are so that you can support them within their given context or role and environment as best as possible. The space of coaching is a dynamic one. It's one where you, as the one coaching or being coached, where the coach and the individual being developed engage in this exchange of feelings and emotions and concrete actions that don't always align, but because there is a trust for the process and an investment of trust in the relationship, you understand that you will build synergy towards greater alignment with one another, understanding what the value that's being brought to you from your coach and the value being brought to the table by the individual being coached. You'll have to be willing to engage and experience the level of feedback from your coach and wisdom and counsel that you know you're relying on to help you be better. And likewise, as the coach, you are relying on the honesty and openness of that individual who's committed to excel in an area that they're entrusting you to help them become great at being or doing so that they can make the impact that they're called to make. Coaching, leadership coaching in any environment is vulnerable and a vulnerable experience for both people. It requires that the coach be transparent about their own journey, not just seek to perform with perfection in being a great coach. Nobody is the symbol of perfection. Nobody is a singular visual for greatness. It's something that's developed over time. And similarly, when you are the individual being coached, you're learning, you're committing to learning, you're committing to engaging in sharing your lived experiences. You're committed to being probed with questions, not just about your work, but your values, your habits, your tendencies, those things that show up over time that your coach is going to uncover for you could be potential roadblocks to helping you be as great as you want to be. And in the midst of all of that, in the midst of all of the messiness of that relationship. That's not a fine line or direct line from one place to another, but can often be a zigzag because you're learning and understanding one another. In the midst of all of that, you both are working with each other with the awareness that you're looking to enhance your current level of skill for where you want to go and or be even more effective for where you are. The coaching relationship demands commitment. It demands honesty. It demands that the person being coached be willing to engage in those ways as authentically and deliberately as possible, and requires the same for the person being coached. Maybe you talk too much. Maybe you dominate conversations and you don't realize it. It's going to be your coach who's going to help you understand how some of those habits may actually cause people to retreat from you. Maybe you're not great at helping people or creating space for people to feel valued or as if their contribution matters because you're so honed in on the task or the work, like I can be guilty of. But your coach will help you to remember that it's helping those people feel valued that serve as some of the motivation to let them know that you see them for what they bring to the table, for who they are in their attitude, in their demeanor, in their work product, in their character, and that those serves as intrinsic motivating factors that keep the relationship viable. A coach will call out things not to embarrass you, not to humiliate you, but to help you grow. Now, current generations like to give input. They love to be heard. They love to share their opinion. They like to post their opinion. They like to leave a comment. But when the shoe is on the other foot to give feedback to them, there's often a resistance and a pushback. And it's not just today, it's human. We don't always like feedback, but coaches give feedback for our benefit because that's how we grow. That's how we're shaped. That's how we're refined. No one has ever made it through life without feedback that would help them get better. And sometimes the feedback is not what you want to hear, and it's downright annoying for you, but you recognize after you sit on it for a little bit, there's some validity in it that you can take away to help you improve and be more effective. You want your credibility to be strong. You want your impact to be long lasting. And you want to learn to cultivate relationships that are dependable, that have the ability to withstand resistance and frustration and tension. And it's the coaching and coachee, or the coach and the player relationship that helps to cultivate that. Determination to remain committed to that coaching relationship, whether you are the coach or the person being coached, becomes a life lesson that you apply to other relationships. Coaching isn't easy for the coach either. It isn't easy for the coach because the coach is going to confront, the coach is going to challenge, the coach is going to press and persist to help you get to where you want to go. I've had plenty of instances where I've had to confront people's behaviors or thoughts or ideas that were counter to the kinds of character and values that they said that they stood for. It didn't always make me feel good to do it, but I knew in doing it, I was working to help them become more of what they said they wanted to be. People dealing with limited beliefs and habits, they need the truth. They need it delivered to them honestly. They also need it delivered to them with care. And they need it delivered to them with an understanding that you're committed to them as individuals, not just in the role that you have or the compensation you're receiving for doing that role as their coach. Coaching isn't comfortable, but it is meant to be fruitful. It prunes you, it refines you, and it also refines the coach. It strengthens both of you. It strengthens both of us, and it expands your capacity, that capacity to lead, to follow, to contribute, and collaborate. And so, if you're a coach and you are feeling a bit uncomfortable from time to time with the label of leadership coaching, that's okay. It likely means that you honor the work. It means that you understand that the responsibility and the weight of that role is a serious one. It's something to be taken seriously. You recognize that the relationship is as much an opportunity for you to grow as it is for the people that you're coaching, that you're cultivating, so that they can learn from you and you from them. And if you're the one being coached, embrace humility, embrace the feedback, embrace correction, because that will make you, as you embrace that correction and embrace that direction, as you embrace that feedback, that will make you a better contributor. It will make you a better partner. It will make you a better follower. It will deepen your own leadership, not just of others, but of yourself. And it will truly allow you to be someone who shapes culture, because now you're equipped to replicate behaviors that are high impact, but are helpful and healthy as you engage the world around you. You don't have all the answers, and you're not meant to. You don't exist on your own. Instead, understand that you exist in an interconnected system where your development impacts people far beyond your reach, because they're watching, they're observing. They too are learning to become better followers who want to follow effective leaders, and leaders that they would want to emulate themselves after, so that they can have just as much of an impact as you do or desire to. We thrive together. We don't thrive in isolation. And so, whichever your role, whether you're a coach or the person being coached, remember this, that coaching was never meant to be easy. Coaching was never meant to be easy, but it was meant to be fruitful. And my hope is that as you walk through the journey of being coached or being a coach, that you experience the growth, the sharpening, and the momentum that this discomfort and that friction in the relationship can produce. And that you experience that momentum because you're willing to stay in the process. All right. So, as I encourage everybody to do each and every time we connect, please visit my website, takecareandlive.com, so you can become a part of my mailing list and some events and free resources that are on the way. Some have some great things in store. And you can also get a hold of my new book, The Momentum List, Rediscovering How to Delight in Time Rather Than Be Mastered by It. It is available at any place online that you decide to purchase the book. But this book is transformational. And as we move into the holiday season, it may be a great gift for you and for others. And as I close out, you do what I encourage you to do each and every day, and that is to take care and live.